Thanks for tuning in to ARIRANG News. I'm Devin Whiting in Seoul. The North Korean regime is apparently upset at the pressure being put on it by South Korea and the United States. The North is threatening a preemptive strike on the U.S. if it detects sign of an attack. But Seoul and Washington are showing no sign they want to take the heat off the North. Connie Kim reports.
A North Korean Foreign Ministry official has warned of additional nuclear tests and a preemptive strike on the U.S. if American nuclear forces mobilize against it. In an exclusive interview with NBC News on Sunday, Lee Yong-pil, the director of the North Korean Foreign Ministry's Institute for American Studies, made clear that the North will not step back from its nuclear ambitions as long as there is a nuclear threat from the U.S. He said Washington has nuclear weapons off of North Korea's coast, targeting the capital of Pyongyang and the North Korean leader. Lee stressed that a preemptive nuclear strike is not something the U.S. has a monopoly on, and warned that North Korea will strike first if it sees a threat from Washington and because the North has a technology. The official also warned that Pyongyang could carry out a 6th, 7th, or 8th nuclear test. These comments follow remarks made last week by U.S. Assistant Secretary of State for East Asian and Pacific Affairs Daniel Russell, who warned that Kim would, quote, immediately die if he decided to carry out a nuclear attack. In a sign the remarks may have hit a nerve, Pyongyang fired off a medium-range Musudan missile on Saturday, though the launch was not deemed a success. With tensions rising in the region, the defense chiefs from South Korea and the U.S. will meet for the annual security consultative meeting in Washington this week. The allies will reportedly focus on Washington's extended deterrence over South Korea, under which the U.S. has vowed to mobilize all of its military assets, both nuclear and conventional, to defend Seoul in a crisis. It'll be a packed week in Washington as South Korea's foreign and defense ministers will hold a 2+2 meeting with their U.S. counterparts to discuss additional ways to pressure North Korea. Connie Kim, ARIRANG News.
Now, while civic groups are waiting for documents related to Japan's wartime sexual enslavement of women to be included in the UNESCO's Memory of the World Register, Japan is being criticized for its response. The country's own media have questioned Tokyo's decision to withhold its yearly financial contribution to UNESCO, apparently in an attempt to block the so-called comfort women issue from being listed. According to an editorial in the Asahi Shimbun newspaper, the Japanese government is refusing to make a payment of 3.85 billion yen, or roughly $37 million that it is usually paid in April or May. It's also seen as a protest against UNESCO's listing of the Nanjing massacre in China, which it did last year despite Japan's opposition. The protracted economic slowdown in Korea is weighing on the job market. Data shows even people with tertiary education are struggling to find work, due both to more people having university degrees and well-paying jobs drying up. Kim Min-ji reports.
In yet another signal that Korea's labor market is in dire straits, nearly 1 in 3 people who are currently out of work have a degree from a 4-year university or higher. According to Statistics Korea, the number of unemployed came to 985,000 in the third quarter of this year, while 315,000, or almost a third of the total, had graduate degrees. The figure is the highest since relevant data began to be compiled in 1999, and it's also the largest proportion of people with degrees who are out of work. Even in the aftermath of the Asian financial crisis in 1999, the proportion of unemployed people with university degrees stood at only 12%. However, the figure has been on a steady climb since 2011, with the exception of a slight dip in 2014. Experts attribute the rise mainly to the country's high university entrance rate. The rate stood at almost 71% in 2014, the highest in the OECD. As a result, although there are more university graduates, there's a mismatch in employment due to a lack of quality jobs amid a sluggish economy. The overall jobless rate stood at 3.6% in September, the highest for that month in 11 years. The youth jobless rate came to 9.4%, also the highest monthly figure tallied since 1999. And in another reflection of the feeble job market, the number of people in Korea who work 17 hours or less a week hit a 5-year high in the third quarter of this year. The figure stood at around 1.3 million in the July to September period, up 91,000 from a year ago. The rise was attributed in part to the government's push to offer flexible working hours for women who previously had difficulty finding work after giving birth or because of child-rearing responsibilities. Another reason cited was the weak economy, which has forced companies to hire more part-time workers than full-time employees. Kim Min-ji, ARIRANG News.
China has launched a manned spacecraft into orbit, the Shenzhou 11. The rocket carrying 2 astronauts lifted off from the Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center in western China at 7:30 a.m. on Monday. Less than 30 minutes later, the Chinese authorities said everything had gone as planned. The Shenzhou 11 will dock with the Tiangong 2 Space Lab on Tuesday, and the 2 astronauts will stay on board for 30 days, the longest stay in space by Chinese astronauts. They'll spend the month carrying out medical and space-related experiments. China's manned spaceflight program started in 1992, and through it, the country hopes to develop a permanent space station by the early 2020s. That's all for now. Thanks for watching. More to come on News Center in 2 hours' time. Bye for now.